Hey there, Beverly Hills 90210 fans. It's now time to dive deep into an episode-by-episode, character-by-character, song-by-song account of the making of your favorite zip code. With your host, Charles Rosin.
I sit in a chair. It's one of Sandy's antiques. The whole thing breaks.
Larry Mullen.
He shouldn't be even in this show. I hope they're going to kill him, and they did.
Pete Ferrero.
Up my TV crush is Claire Arnold. So, I mean, she has to come on the show at this point.
And representing the fans, Lilly Abrams.
Bryan, I love you. I have dreamt about you.
Along with many special guests. And your questions. So sit back and relax because it's like totally time for the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
Okay, another big panel here this week to talk about all things Beverly Hills 90210 on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. And listen, I want to pop right off the bat and say that Lilly couldn't join us today because she's having all kinds of power issues in Connecticut, but we went out and got Zahra, who, of course, is a huge 90210 fan, and she's going to join in and do all of the question stuff. So how exciting is that, Zahra? Are you excited to be here?
I'm so happy. It's like my life. My dream is coming true. I'm in cloud nine. It's like...
That's awesome. That's very cool. And then we have a whole bunch of people to say hello to. I'm going to start with Karen Rosen. Karen, how are you? The better half, maybe?
The better half of something.
I love chocolate.
I'm good today. Very good. Looking forward to seeing everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone.
Yes, a lot of good things to talk about in these few episodes here. And then, of course, Jessica Klein is back with us. Jessica, how are things going on your end?
Everything's good. I'm glad to be here, and it's so much fun to look back at stuff from so long ago that it seems so fresh. So thank you.
No, it's interesting. And before we came on, Jessica was singing Bethany's praises. And so
Bethany Rooney is my favorite 90210 director, and I can attest to that because when I had to do a pilot years later, I hired Bethany to do it. And it's really a treat to share this with all of you because she does beautiful work.
Thank you.
And so, hello, Bethany Rooney. How are you? It's good to have you here, too.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here because 90210 was such a huge part of my life for so many years. It's actually wonderful to delve back into it and go, yeah, I forgot that. And it was such a pleasure to watch again. Very
cool. And also joining us is Arika Mittman, right? How are you? How's everything going? How's everything going? I don't know if we didn't see you beforehand, but it's good to see you.
You snuck in here, right?
I've had internet problems all day, so it's kind of a miracle that I made it into this room. But I am here. I am very happy to
see you, Arika.
Very cool. And then, of course, our two usual suspects, Larry Mullen. How is everything going on your end? I see that you're back in your main location. Yes.
Yep, back east to west, and I tested negative today at 5 days after traveling, so I'm socially a little bit acceptable at safe distances. And glad to be back, see my family and friends, and I got to see these 3 episodes. Two of them I had never seen before. I did see some of the Calamity Bad, but I'd never seen the first time. So it was the first time, which was episode 3 of season 1, and the other one was in season 2. And then I got to see again and relive something which I had worked on, which is Clean Slate. And I have to say, Bethany was advertised as Powerhouse director. I'm buying in. Powerhouse. Earned moments. I got 2 things to say quickly. Rainy Day Rooney. She did the rainy day, and then she came back and did stormy weather. So when you wanted rain, you wanted Bethany. Right. Quickly to say is romance. I mean, we looked at Clean Slate a little bit in the Valerie Malone show a while back, and looking at it again and thinking that Bethany did this, she launched that character. Tiffany is unbelievable in this, and the character of Valerie really gets launched in this episode as something, oh my God, it's fantastic. So thank you so much. That's it. Yeah.
And then, of course, Charles Rosin is with us as well. Charles, how has your week been doing so far?
It's been building up to being back with Bethany. She and I really do go back. I mean, we go back to the days where she took pity on me and would actually help. She had a typing business while she was working for Bruce Paltrow, a very important
I forgot
fellow.
that, Chuck.
Yes, I knew
Great
you when
skill.
it was just Hillshaver. and anyway, and you were great, and she's a very good typist too. But she doesn't have to do that. Takes her own things now. But I think Jessica would remember this, maybe Karen, because they were both there at both times. When we hit the 100th episode, and when we hit my last episode, 143, I said the same thing. Whenever they held up, I said, "This is for anyone who can remember the first 12."
Right.
Because there was the series we did, and then there was the first 12. And Bethany was brave enough to walk in on not only one, but two of the first 6 that we did. And those are always almost a block for me because those are the ones I snuck by the network. And that's another story for another time.
And I just want to let everybody know that Chuck and I also interviewed Joshua Beckett this week, right? And because he's in a big Josh Richland, he's a big part of a clean slate. So I'm just going to play a clip real quick from our interview, and you guys can go find that as soon as this episode's done. So this is a little bit of what Chuck and I talked to Joshua Beckett, Josh Richland about.
Jason and I had a really a good, easy rapport off camera. We both had really, really big dogs. And I used to bring my Great Dane to the set. It was a really nice set to work on. I mean, obviously it was a very well-oiled machine. They'd been doing it for a long time, but everybody was really, really easygoing. I think my memory is that you guys balanced professionalism and efficiency without sacrificing, I don't know, humanity, dare I say it.
So that's a little bit of the Joshua Beckett, Josh Richland interview. That should be a lot of fun. And then I'm going to play one more clip before we get into this week's episode because, we're doing a contest because next week we have Jason Priestley here joining us. So that's going to be a lot of excitement.
But he's talking about being a director, not an actor. You'll have to get him back for that one.
Yes,
this is director
about episodes that he directed and whatnot.
That's right.
We'll have some fun with him along the way, but you'll all have an opportunity to join, like Zahra's having right now. And here is that clip, that promo.
Stop what you're doing. Do you want to join us next week when Jason Priestley is here? I knew that would get your attention. We're running a contest. The mother of all contests. Jason Priestley will be in the house.
Oh, geez, will you stop with that already?
And you'll have 5 minutes to chat with him. So, how do you enter? You must, number 1, have some merchandise from Beverly Hills 90210showshop.com. Number 2, subscribe to us on YouTube. Number 3, left us a 5-star review on iTunes. And 4, share a post about us anywhere on social media. Send proof of all that to Peter at BeverlyHills90210show.com, and one of you will be chosen at random to join us live on the show next week, August 12th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Here's your moment. 5 minutes with Brandon Walsh.
All right, so those are some things coming down the pipeline, so make sure you jump on that. And
these days with 90210, you want in, you got to pay to play. That's the way it is. just like government,
Oh man! So Chuck, why don't we start here at the beginning of this? How did you guys? You mentioned that she did some writing for you, Bethany. Where do you get her in the room to say?
Bethany was different. I wanted to. Bring in directors that I thought were television directors, but might have a different different sensibility than a tried and true spelling director. And so, Bethany is somebody who already had, even though she's being modest and say, well, in the 90s you were there, but you had credits in the 80s and one damn good one in St. Elsewhere. And I know that because I got a plaque here, the only one I got from the Writers Guild, that tells me I'm a good writer because I wrote for St. Elsewhere. So that we know was a good show because I got the plaque to prove it. But so with Bethany, I believe, so Bethany, you, if I'm not mistaken, had a very powerful agent at the time. Sorry, Emmanuel, your agent.
He was for a short time. And then he got way too big for me.
That was the short time he called me up and said, Bethany Rooney. And I said, I know her and she'd be great. And so it was Bethany Rooney, and that's how it was there. But the truth is, I knew her name. I knew she was creative. I knew this, but as a director, no, that was like everything else I did at that time. Here are the dice. I'm rolling, and fortunately, we caught up with the beautiful 6'5" with her.
Well, one of the episodes we're talking about today is things to do on a rainy day, and we didn't think it would be appropriate to talk about this without inviting somebody from Color Me Bad here.
How are you guys?
Hello, Bryan.
Amazing.
Hi.
Nice to see you. I just watched it today.
Me three.
Me too. Yeah, we're all huge fans here.
Yeah, we're fans. I'm even okay with you wearing that Yankee hat, but not almost.
I thought about that after I got on. I was like, "Crap! Did I pick the wrong hat to wear today?" Or what?
I like it.
Me too.
Brian,
Can I just say something, Peter? I just want to say Arika Mittman, who you did not really introduce, was in this episode. She was in the background in the Peach Pit with Bryan Adams and his fellow Color Me Bad members singing. She was a little head in behind them when they're talking to all the gang at the table. That was Arika, who happens to be my cousin and also a renowned television writer producer now. But then she was next.
It's true, but before all that, I was in high school, and I was my best friend and I were 90210's biggest super fans, and we got the chance, thanks to Chuck and Karen, to come out to Los Angeles. I'm from New York, hence I approve of your baseball cap, and and we got the chance to to come and be extras on the show, which at the time we could not have imagined anything more glamorous. We learned quickly the level of glamour involved, because what was amazing about that scene was, at least what was amazing to me when I was a teenager, was learning for the first time how many times they shoot the same scene from different angles. This was the first time I had been exposed to that. And I was like, oh, we'll go shoot the scene. Little did I know we'd be shooting the same scene all day from many different angles with this lovely, talented musicians singing singing I Adore Mi Amor to Donna.
Now, Brian, do you remember coming into the 90210 world? What was that like for you guys back then?
It was, it was awesome. It was really cool experience. I was a little worried because I had never really done any acting before, which I really wouldn't call what I did acting. We were kind of playing ourselves. So it was really cool experience. I'll never forget it. It's still one of the highlights of my career anyway. It was a lot of fun, a lot of nice people, and it was very surreal. It was a really cool experience.
And you did some stuff with Jenny Garth, right? In some of this in this episode. What was it like working with Jenny?
It was awesome. I'll tell you, one of the funniest things was when we all showed up, we were told right away that her boyfriend was there. Their boyfriends, I guess, wanted to make sure they were there for that episode shooting. And I was like, I'm not trying to hit on anybody or anything. I was pretty starstruck myself. One of the funny things were her boyfriend's here, by the way. So I don't know if some of the musicians get bad raps, but they were like, they wanted to make sure I knew that there was somebody keeping an eye on her.
I can tell you why he was there. If you would
go ahead. Yeah, Bethany. Yeah, go for it.
It was Valentine's Day.
Was it?
It was Valentine's Day when we were shooting at the Bellage Hotel, and the day was pretty stressful, really, because all the girls in the cast were waiting for what their Valentine's Day might bring.
That's amazing. Chuck,
this was also go on.
We're probably going to go the same place, but I mean, do you remember getting the music and liking Color Me Bad and wanting them to be a part of this this program? Talk to me about the music and all that kind of stuff. Is that where you were going to go? No, maybe.
Something, but it's okay. Mine was more production oriented one. I'll talk when I get back to it about shooting at the Bellage Hotel.
Yes.
But Well, Bryan, I remember, I believe probably that you had approached someone, your representatives had approached, whether you were probably Creative Artist Agency or someone aligned with it, had approached Mr. Spelling. And I remember saying, these guys want to do this thing. And I don't think I knew your song, but I certainly, it was so catchy. And hearing it again today, you know, it really ushered in a whole, the boy bands. You came first. You were before Boys to Men. You were before NSYNC. You guys were the first the first people that you looked at and went, oh shit, rock and roll's over, man. It's all about modern stuff again, you know. But it was really great and a very romantic song that really fit the fantasy and romance of this particular episode.
Thank you.
Which I think is almost a quintessential 90210 episode for a lot of reasons. And Jess and Carrie, and I think you might confirm on this. Yeah. This was our height of being in pop culture. This was what Bethany recreated as a director under the thing is what our actors endured everywhere they went as a group, at least, or sometimes this had been the legacy of pop magazines, the excitement of that. And I believe this was the week, it was either this week or the week you were prepping, Bethany, that ABC Network came to our Good Morning America, did a week's worth of shows, segments, of the show, not the whole show, but they did segments for 5 days in a row. February sweeps, I don't know, sweeps probably was the reason, Larry.
No, this was April. This was April. This was in April.
No, Valentine's Day.
It was Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Really shot it in Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. It shot in Valentine's Day and aired in
That's
April.
what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe
So that was the at least a memory, and I don't know if it's against this episode or not, but I think it kind of was at the same time.
Lots of compliments here, Bryan. Such a crush on you. Says
we had a lot of fun. It was a blast. I actually got to hang out. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the artist John B., but he was also great friends with Brian Austin Green. And that's how I met him. And we hung out a few times whenever I'd come out there. And just really nice guy, really nice dude.
Very awesome. And Beth wants to know if we can get you to sing I Want to Sex You Up.
Yeah.
You guys really want me to sing a piece of it?
Yeah. That was Beth. You guys is us, and that's Beth, but we'd like to hear it too. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Come inside, take off your coat, I'll make you feel at home. Now let's pour a glass of wine, 'cause now we're all alone. I've been waiting all night, so just let me hold you close to me. 'Cause I've been dying for you, girl, to make love to me.
Oh, amazing.
That's cool.
Oh, she's standing ovation.
Beth says, OMG, I'm done. Okay, I'm sorry, Beth.
Wow, that's
That was great.
That's a great thing.
Thank you.
Bryan, thank you so much for stopping by, man. We really appreciate
Hey,
you.
it was an honor.
You were adorable, and you are adorable.
Absolutely.
Best of luck, man.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Bryan.
much.
Best of luck to you, but not to the baseball team.
Hey, 16 months sober, and I'm loving and enjoying life right now.
Doing
Oh,
great, man.
good to
Steve's
hear.
Congratulations.
Amazing.
You guys-
All right. Thank you, Bryan.
Thanks for coming.
All right. So there we have that. Zahra, what did you think of that? A little surprise for you.
Exciting.
What a surprise.
All right. So let's talk about some of these episodes. Chuck, should we start talking about the first time first?
I think so, because that's when you first came, and it's interesting just to know. So somebody tells you you're at Inner Talent, and somebody tells you we booked you this show, and was the good news the bad news? I mean, the spelling show was not 90210. Excuse me, when you were booked, the class of Beverly Hills was not on the forefront. I mean, it wasn't Ferris Bueller's Day Off or other shows that were in the firmament at that point.
I remember having to go into my agency and sit in the conference room to watch the pilot because unlike now, nothing was available.
Right.
Had to go do that. You know, I've done a lot of shows in my career that have younger casts, and I like that because even though that was a long time ago, I've always had this sensibility of being the mom director, because I believe in loving and nurturing the cast particularly. And, you know, this was a new cast, young cast. They didn't know how big they were going to be at all. This was a show in a warehouse in Van Nuys. It didn't seem like it was going to be, nobody ever knows, but it didn't seem like it was going to be a big deal. But I just fell in love with all of the cast and was happy to be there, particularly on the first time with Jason, because he was so great in that episode.
So great.
He's so good. He really is.
Unbelievably great.
Yes.
He was so good looking and it gave a beautiful performance, I thought.
I'm curious if it's tough, Bethany, when you walk into a series like that, because, I mean, as you kind of grow with it, right? Like, you know, the characters are sort of becoming something and they're developing, and, you know, now Jason could say, well, I don't know if Brandon would do that. But at this point, he doesn't really have that information yet, right? So is it challenging working in that sort of setup where you're like, we're figuring this out together, or what Brandon might or might not do?
Truthfully, I like it. I like to be working on a show that's at the beginning of its run, to feel like I'm a part of that, a part of helping him find, or any actor, helping them find who they are and what the character feels, what, you know, how the character behaves. It helps me feel like I'm more a creative part of it than if I'm directing episode 232, you know?
Sure. Yeah. What were these cast members like back in those days, in those early days? Tori and Jenny and all of them.
Young.
Yeah. And sweet. They were all so sweet and kind and adorable. Not that they changed. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they were also young and they were having a new experience. And I'm sure there was a lot of insecurity there. And funny, I remember that Jason wouldn't tell me how old he was because he was supposed to be a high schooler. He wouldn't tell me. I just today looking on IMDb, I went, oh, he was 21 then, but he wouldn't say.
Not quite yet. Not quite.
He was still 20, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Show. I remember
that,
the
actually.
21st birthday. That's why it was in the.
Yeah.
We were doing summer episodes.
But he felt so, to me, so secure and so confident and happy to be there. And I never saw him being afraid or, you know, anticipating anything. He was happy to be in the moment and let's do the work and have fun doing it. And as you remember, Chuck, in that first season, the hours were incredibly long. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember the first 12. And, you know, we were a non-union crew. And I used to call it, we had a wonderful DP who shot the early 12, the David Geddes.
It was
beautiful.
wonderful.
You'll see some of the best imagery of any of our series. But as I said, when Karen was pregnant, delivering our son Avery, and it was taking a while to happen, and they're on Paul Wagner's leading everybody on a scout, and he calls me in the thing, and he said, how's it going? And I said, well, it's kind of like waiting for David Geddes to finish lighting. And he'd already gone. But, you know, it was, and it was hard, and there were people being hired there because they would work the hours. And so even though they were only getting paid for 12 hours, they actually sometimes had to work 14 hours. That's the Spelling way. And our producer or the Torand way, I guess the company word, and the producer was not Paul Wagner. He was my oldest and closest friend, Jeffrey White. And he was adept at low budget, non-union production, which was one of the reasons that the Spelling company agreed to let him come through the door. But it was really pretty clear that this was a big production and a lot of issues. And we even had the crew at one point vote whether they wanted to go union or non-union, and they stayed non-union by one vote. Had they gone union, that plug would have been pulled that day, I think.
What about the scripts for a first time, Chuck? Who wrote those initial scripts? Do you remember? Is it Darren?
Oh, absolutely. The first time was Darren Starr, and it was his first episodic script after the pilot. And I remember reading it. And Darren, I asked you to come. I know busy, you got your show, and I would say this to him here when he had done the pilot. I was going to ask Bethany, did she stay awake watching it? And I'm not talking about the one that everybody sees. I'm talking about that first one that made the rounds. And it wasn't, there were things about it that made you really like it. And it was the cast. They had somehow got through that and you really liked them for that reason. But I remember reading the first time and go, oh, screw it. I misjudged this guy. He's a really good writer because, I had said to Darren, and he threw that up to me once. I said, I really didn't care for the directing. I think the director let you down. And but he knew I didn't. But at this point, it was really clear. This man could write.
You meant in the pilot.
Yeah, and then the next one was in the pilot, not first time, and not Perfect Mom either, which was the one that followed this. It was a Bethany finished one, and then she started prepping the other one virtually.
Melanie's got a question, and I don't know if you can answer this, Chuck, but
hello, Melanie.
Curious if the writers drew from real life experience for the babysitting scene when the girls got busted snooping. Be honest, LOL.
You have to ask Darren.
You have to ask Darren that question. We can't answer that for you.
Oh, no, that was Things to Do. Was that the same one? Yeah, that was the same one. Right?
That
is that?
Yeah, I could see his sister doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
But so Bethany, you get to this new show, right? And ultimately, now you've seen this. Now, all these years later, what do you think of it? Looking at it all these years later,
I was so pleasantly surprised. I have to say, on a lot of levels. One was I thought that the scripts were intense and interesting, and obviously dealing with huge issues and. I went, wow, this show was pretty good. Which I know is low praise right now, but no,
we're used to that. Low praise is what the writers were.
They were going for it. You were going for that. And I felt really kind of proud watching it. That wow, look at what we did back then. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Larry, you were not a part of this, and I don't think you were either yet, Jessica. What is your interpretation, the both of you, on looking back on those initial episodes? Because you guys developed those characters later on, right? So what is your take on it?
Well, it's like seeing the roots of stuff that we picked up on. I was, again, the first time, which was the third episode that was aired, I guess. Chuck was pushing some boundaries there. Brandon is having sex in his parents' house, and it's at 8:00 in the night. I mean, come on. Chuck is right. He slipped that through there, and I'm going like, whoa. So that was pretty interesting and shocking. And, look, and then, and the other one, there was, it was delightful. The rainy day one, though obviously the stripper in the house thing was a little bit, probably didn't age so well. But the other thing I felt in these episodes, which again is a credit to the early work of Chuck and the writers, it really felt like Beverly Hills. The Beverly Hills problem seemed to be real. There was the Bel Air Hotel, there was the divorce, that whole thing with divorce and how real that was for the kids there. And that part of the storyline. We had Catherine Cannon on a couple of weeks ago, Bethany. She was phenomenal, and we didn't really get to go into this episode and in the rainy day episode, and it's fantastic. And I'm sure it's an early work that Tori did. Some of her best work that Tori did early on, I would think.
Yeah.
And then it was really fun to see. I mean, look, some things in the mood after Brandon was like having sex. I went, what? What was the story of that? In the mood? You're playing like a jazz thing there?
Paid license to us. It didn't cost much.
He got mad at us for the Rolling Stones. He's playing In the Mood.
Grandma would listen to.
It was his way of signaling to his mother, guess what? I guess, in using the mother's music. for me, just segue, the two things that I picked up in watching the episode. One is I remember coming to that location, the nightclub, and it was in downtown LA, about 3 blocks, not far from where you once worked, Arika, just a little west of downtown there in that area. And I remember getting there like 9 o'clock at night and thinking, I'm going to get mugged. They're going to steal my. This was not the gentrified downtown yet, that's for sure. But this club was there. And I believe that a lot of people were waiting outside to get in to wait to us to finish.
That's right.
Wow.
So you had been shooting all day, and I got there probably near the end of it.
Yeah, I think you did.
That was a big production. Clearly, all the resources that we had at 90210 went into that scene, that moment. The other thing I take away with, and it reminded me, I forgot about this, the first maybe 4 episodes that we did, even 5, maybe all 6 of them in this, they all came in short. They were supposed to be 43, and I always had to get dispensation from Paul Stupin to be able to turn them in 25 seconds short and that. And the reason was, so you see, even with that, do you count the number of montages we had? Oh, let's take up another 30 seconds with the montage.
Places that aren't there anymore. So many places are. The Bellage is not the Bellage anymore.
Right.
So many places are gone.
Good question, though, on the Bellage.
We just didn't have the money. We were very low budget. We were We had less than a syndicated budget to make these shows because that's what Fox kind of was at the time.
Bethany, how was it to shoot at the Bellage Hotel?
Oh, great. I mean, I think I shot there 3 times on 90210, I think, because it was sort of our home, or to me, it felt like it was our home base hotel. And they were always very, welcoming and didn't cause us any problems. In fact, things to do on a rainy day. I remember in the parking lot of Tower Records, right? It was in front of it. Is that right? We put up
nearby.
We put up these big rain towers so that we could create rain for the outside of the Bellage, which is, a big and right at their front door. So anybody who wanted to be checking in or whatever would have a little bit of difficulty.
It wasn't. It was Aha. There used to be an Aha.
Oh, that's what it is. Aha. Right.
At that party store. And they had an infuriatingly big parking lot that no one ever parked in when you needed to park someplace.
It was great for the rain towers, though.
But beautiful for rain towers.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Beth says this, and this came up a bunch of times in some of the chats, that Jim was so proud of Brandon losing his virginity under his own roof, but lost his cool when Brenda had her turn. So do you feel that there was a little bit of a double standard there?
Sure. What do you think, Karen?
Sure. Yeah. I was actually shocked today watching the first time again, Brenda's first time at the lack of, well, just tell Mom we were careful. And then they go, oh, and can I just say one other thing? Because some of us have now rewatched that episode, and this is first season. So they're outside playing basketball in the end, and this father-son scene. He's trying to talk to his son every day that the girl from Minneapolis is there, but they never get a chance to. And stuff's happened, and it went on, and it all went on without the parents. And finally, they get their moment, and they put Jim Eckhouse in a tank top. And
what was I thinking?
Well, I bet it was 100 degrees in Altadena that day, and it was probably so hot. But he had man shoulder hair and man hair everywhere.
It
would have been great for poor Jim. It's so funny, and we love Jim. He's remained a friend, but
there was a lot of hair. Yes.
Yes. I have to talk about the double standard because the character of Brenda brings it up and says, if this had been me, you'd be really freaking out, Mom. And Mom says, I am freaking out. But the key for me was when Brandon says he has protection and that he's always had protection. We never had to use it before. And years later, we wrote some kind of episode where Kelly Taylor was going on a date. And we wrote that she put condoms in her purse. And Aaron Spelling wrote a note and said, no, Kelly is not a slut. She would never do that. And I had to fight and say, no, she's smart. That's why she's doing that.
Right.
And the fight about condoms on the show in years to come continued, and it didn't seem like it was a fight at all. Was it a fight for you, Chuck? Because it played.
No, I'm just thinking. I mean, Aaron forgot that Karen wrote a terrific scene in Isn't It Romantic? That was number 9 for us in the first scene, commonly known as the AIDS episode, in which Kelly instructs Brenda how to do condoms. Never trust the guy, I think.
Never rely on the guy. And that was Brandon and Brenda's the first episode where they first got together. Brenda and Dylan, I mean. And so that was a really important, and it was the AIDS episode in the B story. And it was but that was first season, and he was good with it, at that point. Yes, you're right. By the time because we had so much more attention later. When we were writing episode 9, nobody knew who the show was.
Nobody cared. That's exactly right. I think that was always, I will say that about Brenda too. I think that really was it. I remember this being said to me more than once, is that we finally got to a point that the national media finds us and the parents come and look at the show for the first time. And what do they see? The girl losing it.
Yeah.
We got a lot of flack. We got a lot of flack on the schoolyard. Our oldest child was 5 when that show started. Our baby was born that first year, our third child. They're little kids in elementary school, young kids. And we got a lot of attention on the schoolyard. A couple of moms going, excuse me. But yeah.
How about the performance of the girl that played Cheryl? I thought she was phenomenal in this. Yeah, I mean,
great.
Do you guys remember her at all, Bethany?
She had an amazing audition. She just came to tears, and she was wonderful. And I said, I would really like to hire her. And then we went to shoot that scene, and she couldn't cry, and she couldn't cry, and she couldn't cry. And so even when I watched the episode this week, she goes from no tears to tears. You cut away to Brandon, back to her, and now she's crying. And that's because we gave her tears. And it was one of my failures as a director, that I couldn't find the right button to push. I mean, it all turned out fine, and she was wonderful in the show. It's just that moment still resonates for me.
So did it change the way you approached actors auditioning? That if they can deliver here, it doesn't automatically dovetail that they're going to do that when the cameras are rolling.
No, I think it felt like she was particularly vulnerable the day she was doing the audition, and that she couldn't get there on the day that we were shooting. But I still believe that if actors bring it in the audition, they're going to bring it when we get to set. So I think she was an outlier on that. But I felt like I had to take responsibility for it. Bums me out still. I mean, when I saw it, watching it this week, I went, oh.
Well, did anybody get bummed out by the fact she had no tears? It's a panel question. Did anybody get bummed out?
No.
Be kind to yourself. Be kind.
Those little moments that you remember that you think, if only I had, or if we could have, or
Sure. I think that speaks to your talent too, that you're constantly, shaping yourself and thinking about what you could or could do next time or whatever, right? One of the things.
And I must say, still to this day, after 220 or 30 or something episodes, I still learn something every day. That's how wonderful the job is and how complex it is. And it's not because I'm stupid. It's because it's such a huge thing to do. And it's different in every show. It's different in every day.
For
those of you who want to be directors.
Yeah, there you go. That's really spot on. And if you want to be anything, probably, right? You're always learning your skill, right?
Well, that's why it's so exciting. I mean, if you keep learning all the time, how fun is that? That's fantastic.
Absolutely. And then we can start talking a little bit about. I know we're going to talk a lot about this things to do on a rainy day. But you come back for that. That's that's the next season, right? So you did a couple others in the first couple. What is it like when you start coming back to the show, Bethany, and now you're seeing the characters sort of develop and the actors are sort of finding their way and whatnot. What's that experience sort of like for you?
The difference had more to do with what had happened to the show and how it affected the actors. And I don't know, Chuck, you would know more about this than I feel like it was really there in season 3 and building in season 2. Would that be right? In terms of them going off to malls on the weekends and the press all over the place, and
Well, it was the very end of season 1, and then our summer episodes of season 2.
Oh, so it was earlier.
And that's when there was a huge promotional push. And I thought you were going to say, was it season 2 or season 3 that the cast wanted to leave? I didn't know what, and I mean that in not that in this period of our time in the growth of the industry, the television was the poor stepchild to the real art and the real work being done in features, and particularly that indies had started, and Shannon was in Heathers, one of the original indies, and so there was always that too. That started really right around the time you did Things to Do with a Rainy Day. Right, leading up to that was, in the second. For me, I don't know what you feel, Jessica, about that.
I was wondering if the line when Jenny says, "I'm getting tired of malls too," was that line scripted or did she ad-lib that line? Do you remember? Because that was so wild.
I can look up. I have the scripts here. I can look it up, and I'll bring it back next week.
There you go.
That was just. It was.
But it was about their experience. They had experience already. Yeah.
Their experience as a cast was the same as the Color Me Bad experience we portrayed.
Totally.
So what they were doing outside, running in and trying to sneak into the hotel to chase the band, that's what was happening to these actors when they'd go on the road and when they'd go anywhere. There were thousands of people trying to sneak in, and it was a pop culture moment that was just fabulous. And to have that, Bethany, you brought such reality to it. The reality of, I know Karen and I have both talked about our love for the movie The World of Henry Orient. And there's a sense when these girls are running into this hotel and then finding out that the mother's having an affair that comes what happened in that movie, and but the realness in this of what it felt like outside the hotels and what it felt like chasing a band, everything about it, you captured it with such realness. That's what made it so amazing to me as a viewer watching your work as a director. You made those band members seem real, and he said, Bryan, that I was just being myself. We all know that there's nothing harder than to be yourself in a scripted setting, and it's so that felt very good. The other thing that I was really impressed by in that episode was Tori's performance, and it was touching and it felt vulnerable. And Catherine talked about working with her, but it was good stuff to watch those two together.
Yeah. I always felt that Tori wasn't taken seriously enough, being Mr. Spelling's daughter, but she was really talented. And the other thing I want to say is I don't mean to imply that when their popularity grew up that they changed that much. They really were still the same people, but they had things coming at them from everywhere. And so there was less time and less lightness and less joy than there was in the first season when nobody knew anything and we can just all, have the time of our lives.
Zahra, I want to see, do you have any questions about the first time that you wanted to ask?
Yes.
What you got?
Was there an inspiration behind the storyline where Brenda was babysitting the teacher's No, that's not the question.
That's not the question. No. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to know if it's one of the most popular questions. People want to know why was the backlash when Brandon lost his virginity different from Brenda losing her virginity to Dylan, because Jim was really rough on Brenda, whereas on the other hand, you'll see Jim being relaxed, and Cindy is telling Jim, hey, let's talk about it. But Jim is like, he's not feeling that type of same emotion. So a lot of fans want to know why is there such a difference in the parenting style between the two?
It's a good question. Why is there a different parenting style? And we kind of talked a little bit about that before.
Well, what episode was it where Brenda had that experience?
Spring Dance. It was the second to last one.
Season 1.
Yeah, before that, they had the fight. You know, she had her fight with her dad when she's.
Look, I'm curious for you, Bethany, with something like that. You know, do you look at the script and say, you know, this is, you know, should they be celebrating Brandon, you know, losing his virginity? Or do you have questions like that? Do you ask the writers things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah, it's gotten more ritualized through the years. I don't know if we had tone meetings back then or not. I don't remember, but you know, there's always.
We did have a tone meeting because it was, and I've given him a lot of praise for teaching me how important those meetings were. They were the most important meetings I had all week. And Jim Dixon said, you go over every line with the script with the director. And so with the producer there. But you know what, Bethany? I'm not sure that we had the luxury of tone meetings in the
I don't remember it.
The first ones.
Yeah.
I remember doing a tone meeting with Dan Attias on East Side Story. And I remember doing a tone meeting on Isn't It Romantic? But I think we were too, that was already, Paul was the producer. I think we were just too, there's a Yiddish word, isn't it? Just vermished. I think we were so, you know, just trying to just get through it. And so
it means confused.
Thank you.
Oh, well.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, I know. We just were flying by the seat of our pants, is what I remember, and trying to just do the day's work as best we could.
And the first two were really the ones that were. We won't even get into that. I mean, this was the first. In fact, truthfully, it was such a good episode. It was the fourth episode produced. Bethany did 4 and 6.
Right.
And the third was 1-on-1, which did turn out pretty good, but it wasn't as commercial as it frankly as interesting as the first time in a character like this. And
so they moved it up.
By the time these episodes started, we were just descending ratings wise. You know, we had started at 10s and 11s, and then we're 6s and 7s, and then the one episode that caused hell to break loose was the 17-year itch, and then things changed.
Tiesha says the show opened up so many conversations in my family, and that she loves it. Tammy says, "Isn't it romantic? My favorite." Thanks, Karen. So. And Kristen, Tori's outfit, hair, everything. She looked perfect and acted perfect.
Yes, she did.
Yes.
And I want to say that about the wardrobe. You know, I always make a big point, and Jessica knows this. I was not the wardrobe guy. Mr. Spelling was the wardrobe guy. I didn't really care. I thought, you know, we didn't have any money anyway, so put him in a white T-shirt and blue jeans and, you know, call it a day. But, you know, we weren't going to, they did more than that. But this episode, really, everyone looked so great, and I realized that I had become a different kind of person, because what stands out to me as much as almost anything in this is Brenda's dynamite purple raincoat, which I thought was one of the best pieces of wardrobe. I said, I want that raincoat. You know, it's like the thing. You know, 30 years later, you're pressing where you can buy on the screen, where you can buy it, who made it, all those kind of things.
In that Color Me Bad episode, I had Jenny's dress, that dress she wore with the Doc Martens boots. I had a very similar, Fred Siegel sold them. I think they should bring that back right now because it would be very popular. Very
I love that outfit too that Jenny was wearing. That just totally, because I grew up in that era, 94 where I graduated. So that was definitely of the time. I mean,
yeah.
Amazing
comfy too.
But it's one thing to praise the wardrobe, Peter. We also, and I found it in both episodes that were, Clean Slate with Richard Gollins wrote, and this one was Jonathan Roberts, who was Larry before Larry, and he was, and I think I've said went on to write The Lion King, and Maria Semple, whose father was a distinguished Hollywood screenwriter, created Batman, the TV version, and she's gone on to be a very, very acclaimed novelist.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, there was some illness in his family, and Maria stepped in, and I also really thought the words in all three of these scripts, it's kind of the reason that we're able to. In concert with how you brought them to life, that there weren't too many cringeworthy moments.
No, the scripts were great.
Because of the writers.
Really good. They were great.
Bethany, Bryan's not with us anymore. So what was it like directing Color Me Bad? They were huge at the time that they walked into your world, right? So what was that experience like for you?
They had to be introduced to the process, but they were all very willing to do that. And, the direction had to be a little bit more, don't try so hard, just be. But they were all very willing to do that. And we had a lovely time. And of course, when they do that song at the end at the Peach Pit, that's something that didn't leave there's
Arika.
There's Arika. Right in the back there. Right behind the
You look hard enough. You can find me.
Right there.
There you are.
That's amazing. Arika, do you remember being there and all that? Was that like just a crazy fan out experience for you?
Absolutely do. I was in my junior year of high school, I think, sophomore, junior year. And, this show had just become it had just exploded as the hottest thing on TV. And, the fact that my best friend Sharon and I got to, go out and be extras on it. I mean, we were kind of mini celebrities at my Long Island high school for a minute there. We both wrote, we were feature editors of our school newspaper.
You wrote about it, right?
And we did. We wrote an article.
Like
we did. We had a column that we wrote like every issue of the paper. And this is when they had papers and papers were on paper, and we wrote about our experiences, but it was so much fun. It was, it was an experience of a lifetime when we were kids. And we learned, for me, like, I felt like I was learning. So I was getting this crash course in production and how production worked and how, just the way things were shot. I came from, I was doing theater. I was a theater kid. I was a theater geek. So, it was like, you rehearse it and you do it and everybody claps. And, so it was, it was really my first time spending time on a television set. And, and it's what I went on to do. I went on to, write and produce television. And, I can definitely remember my day there. I will also say that I remember how kind the cast was to us. They were very, very kind. I mean, my best friend Sharon, for years after that, to this day, I think, and she works for Access Hollywood now, but to this day, it was Jason Priestley picked me up. Gave her a big
lifted
hug.
her off the ground.
Those
2 moments.
Yes, and it was one of her lifetime great memories. But you know, I mean, it was an amazing thing. It was an amazing thing to, you know, to get to do. It was really special.
And then you came and became an intern at some point, right?
I did, yes, I did. During college, I came back and interned, and you know, I got to learn. You know, that was my first day on set, but I got to learn all of the steps of the process. Thanks to you, Chuck. I got to spend some time in the writers' offices. I got to spend some time on set in the production offices, in the casting offices. And you took me one day to Aaron Spelling's office. He was watching a final, you know, version of some, you know, of one of the episodes. And, you know, and I got to be there for that. And, you know, his office, with the butler and it was, you know, everything you can imagine. And, you know, of Aaron Spelling's office in the 90s. And, you know, and I remember watching it and waiting to see like what his notes were going to be. And his only note had something to do with Tori's hair. That's what I remember of that. But oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and you know, and as I said, it was my first learning experiences, and you know, and it was because of Things to Do on a Rainy Day. It was the first time I met Bethany, and we worked together years later on South of Nowhere. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because there was never going to be an easy transition to this unless you did. You know, the last show I ever ran was this very low budget show for someone who all of us know in this panel very well, Tommy Lynch, and called South of Nowhere, about gay girls in high school, and I could not have done the show without Arika. And Arika wrote a script about, you know, and in the series, the mother and daughter had a lot of conflict. The mother was changing her view because Bethany was unsustainable to keep that conflict going for more, you know, the people before me had done. So we smoothed that out, but still wanted to deal with, you know, here she's changing, but the grandma comes in, and the grandma being the source of the coldness and the source of the bigotry. And Arika wrote a really fine script. Arika was very close to her grandmother, Karen's aunt, Pauline. And Bethany did a job that was, and both of this together was just, given how much money we were spending and how much time we could spend on all the things.
You mean how little
there was. It
little
was
money and time.
Low budget extreme, lower than 90210. You know, at that point.
I have to interrupt you, Chuck, for 1 minute, because say that what Bethany does as a director and what you're describing that she did with you in calling out something about smoothing something out in the script is one of Bethany's greatest talents as a director, is that she will look at a script and find the holes in it and find the places where the story may not work well.
That's right. And you're so right. And on this show, I remember being so, Bethany, we don't have time to do anything. And it was like, okay, we're going to change it. That first one that we did, you remember with the guns and all that, and that South of Nowhere. But I just want to do the footage. This show won a Humanitas Award. This is an award-winning episode that Bethany directed and that Arika wrote. And Arika got all the money. Sorry, Bethany.
Let's move on to let's talk about this other episode too, right? The season 5. We haven't even jumped into this yet. A clean slate. We've talked about it, Larry, like you said on the Valerie Malone episode. We kind of went into some of Valerie's stuff. Bethany, now we're moved through, and we are in the 5th season of this show. Wonderfully, you're still being brought back to direct things, right? Yeah, it's all going well. And now,
and clearly, wait, Peter, we chose a clean slate because it was the book ends with Jason, a young actor and now a more mature actor in this. But we could have picked any of the episodes Bethany did in season 4 and had the same kind of depth conversation. Greek to me, I remember especially the sorority one was the first serious one we really did in season.
And presumption of innocence, a very serious topic that was about child abuse. And
Perfect Mom, we talked about a little bit,
Yeah, so I just want to say that there was just there really wasn't there wasn't a clunker in the group.
it was really hard to pick actually when we were going through them, because Chuck sent me the list of the ones you directed, and I was like, all of them.
You guys are so kind. Thank you. I just feel like I'm blushing this whole time.
In terms of, okay, so Shannon's out of the picture in season 4, and then we have Valerie, or Tiffany, has come into season 5. What was it like working with Tiffany in this era, this clean slate era?
I loved her. I mean, what was not to love? She was a terrific actress and would try anything, and she had probably still does have a very joyful spirit. And in that particular episode, we got to do that whole fun running down the corridor dream sequence stuff, which was different and new. And though we didn't do anything radical, it just was fun to try something together and say, hey, how about this? How about that? And she's an extremely creative, wonderful person.
Now, Jessica, you had said something before we came on to Bethany about how Tiffany was,
What was impressive in the episode was how Tiffany had to display two sides of her personality. She was the Eddie Haskell at home with the Walshes, and then she turned into this femme fatale. And the performance that you got out of her was so incredibly layered and impressive. And combine that with how beautiful she was, and in a very natural way. And you made the pool look real, and I mean, it all looked. She didn't seem like I actually bought it when she was coming on to Dylan. This was her, and the girl that America knew from Saved by the Bell was not this girl. And you really helped us to sell that this is that girl, and she did. Pulled off the lies at home and showed this bad girl.
Yeah. All that pulling him in at the shooting pool and stuff. That was such a fine line to walk, and she just did it so beautifully. I mean, she could have gone right over the edge into caricature, and she didn't.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember directing her in some of that, in some of those scenes in the pool room and all that stuff?
No. when I watched the episode, I went, "Oh wow, that is really good." Really good. I just remember having a relationship with her where we could really talk about the work, and that was kind of surprising because she is so beautiful, and we all sort of tend to think that's all they have going for them if they have that, if they're lucky enough to have that. But she was really deep and really loved working, and mentioning Saved by the Bell, I think she was really looking forward to expanding her work and the in her work.
Hey, I wanted to say one thing to Bethany. Writers sometimes and directors always have different visions of stuff. And I've noticed something in your work which I really want to applaud. It's a small thing, but you didn't have any candles in the bedroom scene with Dylan. The directors drive me crazy. They put all these candles in especially if you shoot a bathroom scene. It's got to be full of candles. I have to tell you, Jason Priestley would have put candles there. And I really appreciate it.
Have you seen that in stuff that he's directed, have you?
Yes, I have. The other thing I want to say about this, and it goes with Jessica's saying, and just, because obviously it was the end of Shannon, and we really were launching this character. So it starts so beautifully with her going through Brenda's stuff in the beginning.
Yes.
But I remember watching it this time, I remember sitting with my sons, who at that time were like 13 and 8. And as they were watching the Tiffany stuff, they kept moving closer and closer to the TV. They literally jumped into the TV. And I was like, oh my God, I said, this is crazy.
Larry, we spoke to Joshua Beckett, Chuck and I did, and I asked him about the origins of the character and the name, and we didn't really know, but you have an answer to that question of where does Joshua?
I think I'm pretty certain he appeared in the beginning of college, because I know it was a character that I collected character payments on, so you always like that. And I knew I had named him because Richland. I had a friend named Craig Richland, if you're listening, who was, this was, there was still cocaine around and stuff then. It was, it was living high. And he
much of it on the set, from the glorified AFI crew until we fired some people, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was past. I was already out of it. This was more like 80s, thank God. So yeah, that's how I was functioning. But I always remembered him. I just kind of thought I would honor my Coke dealer.
Love that. Okay, but in this episode, man, this explosive ending, you know, and props to Chuck, because we were talking about, I don't know if we were talking about on Josh's episode or where we were talking about it, but writing in little dialogue things like, man, I can't believe we got out of there alive, you know, and then he's about to, you know, wind up in this horrific crash. I know I did not see this coming. Do you remember this, Bethany? You know, when
very well.
Yeah, that's a big production scene for us and you too, I imagine, at that point.
It was, and when I watched it again now, I, like everybody else, went, ah! You know, I didn't know, I didn't remember that it was going to happen. But once I saw it, I went, oh yeah. And I think it was my idea how to do it with the truck and the car attached to the front of the truck, and I remember standing out in the Peach Pit parking lot that night and shooting it, and how pleased I was that it all turned out the way that it did.
It was beautiful, and I remember when you first said it, and you know how you were going to stage it, and then it really confirmed something that I believed the whole time we were making the show, and believe it today, that radio is a more powerful medium than television, because it allows the person hearing the sound to project, you know, what's happening. And so you heard the crash, and hey, we didn't have to then show it. We could mount it, so it was good for production to do it off camera. But you hear it, and then the horror of it, and then of course, you know, shooting through the flames was also a recall, and not exactly the same, not the same angle, but also we did that with Luke and Dylan with his father when the car blows up. So it was, you know, and then you know, I remember then the next episode, a big funeral in this, and I thought to myself just as all these times, boy, did 90210 know how to do death. You know, we just kept
somebody's gonna die tonight.
Zahra, do you have any questions about A Clean Slate?
I just want to know if I wanted to ask a question about
yeah, we got you.
Was the I'm hearing feedback.
Larry's moving around a bunch. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
yeah.
My dog.
Still.
Question. What? I love the dialogue between Brandon and Josh, and I wanted to know if the storyline was inspired by a true story.
Anybody
no,
have
it was
political?
not. Zahra, it was not. It was
because
we had
that's so weird. So when I first saw it, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So,
the goal we had. So look at it this way: our goal was to make Brandon become president of the school and be a little ambivalent about it. You know, that he was, and so he gets recruited to run, and now he's in charge of the whole thing. So, you know, it was a way to, we used this incident of Josh dying to be able to create a version that he's not the legitimate president. And we could carry that out. We carried that out to the Rolling Stones episode. So our overwhelming, by the time we're in the fourth and fifth season, our overwhelming goal is bringing in storylines that we could stretch, because we had so much to cover, and it was serialized, as opposed to when Jessica and Karen and I first started with the show, where it was all self-contained stories.
I wanted to say, well, I was really proud of this episode, and this is really purely Chuck, the political angle of this thing, which is so relevant today. I'd forgotten the whole thing with Deshaun coming in and calling the other person of color a racist. It was such a interesting thing, but it really was so relevant today. But that was purely inspired by Chuck and what he wanted to bring to the show. And I thought we really brought it off and executed it really well. And it seemed like a real legitimate thing. I mean, that's what really made it such a powerful episode. So
student government.
The other thing I would like to say is to point out was that season 4 or 5?
Five. Actually 5.
In season 1, the episode we were talking about, we shot it all pretty much on set with no money. And here we are in season 5, and we're shooting at Occidental College, these big exteriors. And then we have 150 extras in the auditorium. And then we have the truck and the car at the end. And I think it's just indicative of how the show grew in so many ways, many ways. But one of the ways was we got to do it bigger, and it never took away from the intimacy of the storylines, like what you're talking about, which was really, really brilliant in the script.
Zahra, do you have any other questions that you'd like to pop in?
Yes, I have a question for Beth, and it's just the fans wanted to know. I got a question from Alicia Wagner, and she wanted to know if you had the opportunity, if you had the freedom to change the characters the way you want to, the way you think the characters should be in, what changes would you make? And what type of changes would you do to the character if you had the freedom to do so?
I don't have the freedom.
But if you did, I guess they.
Do you mean looking back?
Yeah.
Do you mean looking back now?
Looking back at it?
Looking back right now.
Yeah, okay.
Looking back right now, what change would you make?
That's a really hard question, because truly I loved those characters and I loved those actors so much. I can't even imagine them being different. I will say that Shannon was challenging, but aside from that, I love them all. And I'm still friends with Gabrielle, because she being president of SAG and me being, an officer in the DGA, we sometimes interact at things, and that's a joy to see how we've,
Time out. What are you? I didn't know you were an officer of the DGA.
Sir, I'm the 5th vice president.
Excellent. That's a real union, right?
Yes.
Chuck, we settled without an authorization vote. We should thank Chip and stuff. We did all right. The writers settled.
I know. I'm so happy. We have in our way right now.
I did. I played him in this, and this also I noticed today. ICM is now. So when I did when the first one happened with you, 4 big talent agencies in town now, and when UTA happened first, I wrote Chip. Where to go? You got what? He went.
You should tell the fans what you're talking about.
Thank you, Karen.
We're talking about the Writers Guild of America and a strike that's been going on for a while against some policies that unions do that I'm not going to go into, but they take money from things. If I'm off the screen, and they've been doing it forever.
Don't try to explain packaging fees.
Right,
hold on. Let's move on to
Definitely don't.
Let's talk about from the episode. Cress did a phenomenal performance in the scene standing up to the committee. That's Deshaun. What did you guys think about working with Cress? Larry, you're always a Cress fan.
Cress, well, I got the work. We cast him, and then Chuck sent me down to Occidental because we were shooting. I can't remember what the episode was, but he was, it was a basketball thing. He was in the gym there. We were shooting live, him shooting. And I realized, oh my God, he's really not a very good basketball player. But which was good because he was a good actor. But anyway, we walked around the basketball. But I thought he was great. He was so happy. And I've heard him interviewed about this. And he knew so little he was a student at UCLA then that he wasn't sure if he was allowed to have food from the craft table. Like when he tells the story, I'd heard it before, that he wasn't sure that he was allowed to say, oh yeah, you can have that's for you too.
It was a real discovery of our talent director, our casting director, Diane Young, walked in a room and said, I've just found him from UCLA. I think he's what you want.
Can I just give a shout out? He's what?
He's Black Lightning.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he's a lead in the CW show.
Worked with him on.
Oh, he's had a wonderful career. I'm happy.
Yeah, I worked with him on Heart of Dixie after that. I mean,
did you share any 90210 memories together?
I can't say that we did, honestly.
Right. Yes.
Aaron, what were you going to say?
I was going to give a shout out to Jill Henkel, who was doing the, the set decoration and stuff. And in that episode went, because there's a subplot, Claire comes and moves in with Donna and Kelly out at the beach. And I forgot this completely, but Donna's very pretty blue comforter that she had in her blue sheets with the floral, with the pop of color. I liked them so much. I went out and I got them for my daughter's bed, and that's what Lindsay had on her bed for so many years. I was like, where'd you get that? It was really good. So thank you, Jill. It was really pretty. Nice to see it again as well. But and I also want to just say, because I know we're getting towards the end here, but Bethany and I worked together on a tough episode, and it also could have been, too much or over the top. It was about child abuse, presumption of innocence. And that was, Scott, who Doug Emerson played, who died in the gun episode. We've talked about that one. And now it's his little sister who comes with the very tough mom, and all the little siblings, and she's a troubled girl. And it was a story of child abuse where a teacher got wrongly accused, but it was really the uncle. And again, a serious issue and tough to deal with. And it was hard to, but something that goes on in families quite a bit, And so here we took this. Raising your hand.
I'm glad you brought it up, Aaron, because here's a very interesting factoid that I know Bethany probably had forgotten until I reminded her of this. On presumption of innocence, what you see, if you go back to see this episode, what you will see shot by shot is Bethany's director's cut. She turned in the director's cut. I looked at it. It was like, well, what should we do? I forget who was the cutter on this one. He said, I don't know. I said, I think it holds up pretty well, because you had cut out some monologues. This script was very over because it was so much, drama and family stuff. And you were able to get it to move and do it this way. And I showed it to Mr. Spelling. And as we got, as Arika said about he was interested in Tori's hair. He looked at this and went, wonderful job. So it's the director's cut, and not that even my good friend Dan Attias or Jack Bender, their cuts were messed with a little bit, but this was perfect into.
So thank you, Bethany, all these years later, but thank you for doing a great job.
That was a great episode. It was a great
tough one. Toughest one.
I was going to say also, Larry, you worked with Bethany again. Chuck, you left at some point, right? But you also worked with her on Lover's Leap, which I believe is what is that, season 6? Yes, right?
Yeah, season 6. Yeah, you remember this one, Bethany? You shot on the Santa Monica cliffs. It was pretty harrowing. It's amazing stuff you did up there. I can't remember why we watched that again, but we just happened to see that sequence, and I remember that day, and you probably do too. There was a terrible accident down on the PCH that day, and we had to kind of shoot around it. Do you remember this thing at all?
Now that you're saying it, yes.
There was a fiery accident. But yeah, it really holds up well. It was one of the, it was the end of the Bryan of the David's mother getting electroshock, actually.
Yeah.
And also, the suicidal thing where basically him and Val get out in the cliff and she talks him out of
Electroshock and suicide. Okay.
Nothing. Happy thing.
After our time. That was after we left.
Aaron says, wow, Bethany, hearing all the episodes you directed, it's absolutely amazing. And I'd like to second that note. I mean, like I said, it's just incredible, the work that you did.
We were singing her praises on Stormy Weather. I mean, we had Stormy Weather for the Cult Show, and everyone was going, oh my God, this episode is crazy.
Oh, absolutely. That was a beautifully directed one. If we hadn't already talked about it in reference to the cult, the storyline, we could have talked about that one.
Man, I wish we could all work together again. Wouldn't that be fabulous?
So great.
Oh, we're retired.
Yeah. You have to come up with something wonderful.
We can join your writing group if you want.
Yeah, I'm writing a novel now, so we all are a writing group. Larry, you can teach me.
Arika, you still are in the game. You get your show, you get Bethany, and you have it.
Hire us.
Absolutely, I'd be honored.
That'd be great, Arika.
Bethany, are you working on something now? Are you attached to a show?
COVID. It's COVID.
No, but she still could be attached.
Bethany's working.
I was
yeah,
the
I'm
producing
actually
director on Bull the past 2 seasons.
Oh.
But I missed directing too much, honestly, because as the producing director, I only got to do 3 episodes a season. So I'm going to take my wings and fly back to freelance directing because I love to do it. So,
Bethany, I want to ask you, and also in one of these episodes, we have Kathleen Robertson, right? You mentioned that Claire is in here. What was it like working with Kathleen?
Why do you ask? Like that?
Because he's in love with
we
her.
absolutely love Kathleen here on the show, and we have a thing where we're trying to get Kathleen on the show. You know what I mean? So I always like asking about what she was like to work with everybody. That
He actually loves her more than anyone. And,
I have nothing but great things to say about her. I loved her, and then I worked with her again in this moment. I can't remember the name of the show where it was she and Tay Diggs were detectives together. That was a few years ago. And both times she was absolutely wonderful. I mean, I couldn't find a somewhat negative thing to say about her if I tried. I thought she was perfect.
So why won't she come on the show then? You can't. We're gonna put you on this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, call her up, will you?
Give her a little nudge. Tell her how much fun it is.
She has a new show, I think, doesn't she?
Come on
Quibi.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So one idea that Larry and I were talking about this week is we would like the fans of our show to write, to send me an email to Peter at Beverly Hills 90210 show and tell us why Kathleen should come on the show. And we are going to collect all of these emails and we are going to send them to the proper person and let them see, why Kathleen should come on the show. So let's work on that amongst everything else that we've given you to do this week. Yeah, a little homework. All right, guys, I think we really rocked this episode. I think we covered a lot of things in these 3 episodes. Let's give Zahra a shout out for filling in for Lilly this week. You did an amazing job. Lilly, I think I saw Lilly hanging out here somewhere. So Lilly, we'll have you back next week. That's exciting. And listen, Bethany, you directed some of the most important episodes that we all care about. You know, the fans that are here have so much love for you and the work that you did. It brought them all in, and we're continuing to talk about this stuff from 25 to 30 years later. That speaks to the incredible work that you did, that all of you did on this show. So thank you for being here and spending some time with us. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Peter.
Great to see everybody.
Nice to see you.
All right. And so don't forget, next week, guys, Jason Pleachley is going to be here talking about directing and all that kind of fun stuff. So make sure you tune in next week. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Later.
Bye.